We're reviewing South by Southwest 2021 film, The Spine of Night. This is a entirely rotoscoped animated feature, and it is basically a fantasy story that spans eras, and it follows what happens when a power falls into the wrong hands and what that kind of dark, sinister ability can do to the people at the time, and also how that can last generations. Holy shit, this movie. I don't think I really knew what I was getting into. And I mean, with frame one, I'm like, whoa, I haven't seen that in animation form before.
So here, let me get ahead of you because this is how I'm going to frame my conversation around this.
Okay.
How much did you like it?
I'm probably in the middle of it.
Okay.
I've got criticisms that are mostly that mostly pertain to the story.
I appreciate everything that happened here. It was one of the midnighters I passed on reviewing. And I very much enjoy a lot of the aspects of the creativity that goes into it. And also it's the fact that it is rotoscoped animation the entire time. So like this is a craft. What they've done is pretty crazy. How they frame the narrative is a mess. How they do some of the action is, I know it's a throwback to the 80 to heavy metal, like the movie and all that stuff, but I think it works in heavy metal because you have these wild musical interludes and you have this crazy fantasy space magic going on at all times. And I think where the Spine of Night goes a little wrong for me is where it doesn't have any of those elements. It's trying to be heavy metal in presentation, but it's kind of a drier fantasy story, and I don't think the actual animation holds up to that. And the last thing I'll say is the action for me, it's slow action because the cartoonists have to take their time. Like, so when a knight swings their axe, it's like this slow motion, like that's the speed of it, and then it causes this like brutal decapitation. And the gore is crazy. There's a lot of really crazy animated gore in this, but it doesn't really match the intensity of the film, and it never hits that intensity because characters are forced to go in this kind of slower speed, I would say, where Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge, which I just saw last year, proved that animation can be effing energetic, it can be aggressive, and it can do the gore too. So it's like I felt a little detached by that, and that's the only reason like why I didn't like it. And it's a middle of the road for me, so that's why I said that. Like, I don't want to completely crap on it because there are a lot of like aspects you're into it, you're going to be super into it. It just wasn't for me 100%.
I get that. I mean, definitely wasn't for me 100%, but I was pretty thoroughly wowed by that animation from beginning to end. And I know what you mean about the pacing of things like fight sequences. I think that that goes hand in hand with that animation style to an extent. Yes. And I think I just fell into step with that quickly enough where it didn't really bother me. And eventually I completely had forgotten about it. What I didn't quite forget about is their choice to tell this in more of an anthology type format, where you're kind of passing the baton from one group to the next. And I understand the purpose behind why they did what they did and structuring the story that way. But the problem is, I do think it takes them too long to encourage viewer attachment to the characters. And so you just kind of keep falling into these lulls when you leave one particular character and move on to the next. That said, I still think all of the characters eventually get there by the end, but by the time you've connected with certain ones, you're being ripped away from them so quickly that it can't really sustain a consistent level of engagement. But I was just fascinated by the big swings that they were taking nonstop with. I mean, character design, the gore was just wild to me. I mean, people being chopped in half, like animated intestines going all over the place. This is the kind of thing, and it feels pointless to say this given our current situation. This is the kind of thing that I wish I was in an Alamo Drafthouse at a midnight screening with a beer in hand and a bunch of people being like, holy shit, every time someone was decapitated or something. I feel like I definitely missed that communal vibe while watching this, but later on when we can get back out there safely, this is the kind of thing that I would really like to see with an audience, because like It feels very metal to me, and I haven't seen anything quite like that in so long, and I was definitely caught up in that vibe of it.
I was caught up in the vibe, but to your point about the narrative structure, it almost feels like an anthology when it shouldn't at times. And again, to your point about character design, there are some of those segments where I didn't even know the characters' names, and I didn't even know why the segment existed. Like, there's a thing with peasants that goes on for like 10 minutes, and you're just kind of like,
Are you
what
talking
is the
about?
importance here? Like there are things that feel so out of place as you're jumping around a there is a magical power called the bloom. That is what this essence is and what everyone is fighting for in medieval times. And there's a guardian protecting it, and there is a queen telling him about the different stories that we see unfold. Some of those stories are very engaging, and the animation was never better than when the guardian takes over and talks about like the real cosmic elements, and all of a sudden the animation turns into these interstellar backgrounds and the lines become white, and all of a sudden like the animation takes this cosmic element to it. That was awesome. Then there are other times, like I said, the peasants just kind of standing around not really doing much, and you feel the outdatedness of the project. I think that's where it didn't, there's it's a weight, or sorry, it's a scale, and it tips this way, tips that way, and it just kind of tipped the wrong way for me a little bit.
I totally get it. I hear where you're coming from on that one. All right, let's score this baby. You want me to go first on this one?
Yeah.
I'm going to 3 out of 5. Again, I think the story structure might not have been the way to go, or maybe it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. But I spoke to Lucy Lawless about this, and she kind of said the word that I wanted to apply to it. But I'm going to use this word, and I can't quite put into words myself why I feel this way. But like I was utterly charmed by it. Like, as brutal and bloody and gross as it is, there's something very charming about seeing a story like this told with that animation style. And I was very caught up in that, to the point that like there's certain things that I can't stop picturing, and I like when I'm reminded of them. Like, it sounds very weird, but when I see that light blue color and I think of the bloom, I don't know,
Yeah.
like, I kinda get excited when frames of the movie come right back into my mind.
Yeah, I will. When I finished watching it immediately, I was sitting at a 3 point, like a 3 out of 5. Like that was where I was. I'm like a middle of the road here. But the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, and the more it really just wasn't for me. I think I do lean to that 2.5, where it's like
Yeah.
I'm not super into it. And for the reasons that I've kind of already said, I can't even give it that like passing praise. It's just that thing where I respect exactly what it's doing. It has the nostalgia factor. I think that's why I would even say enchanting, like beyond charming. It has this like enchanting quality where we haven't seen this in a long time. And it plays just like a thing that we're missing in a way, but still execution and intent. It's something that I always argue. And it's like the intentions were great. I do enjoy exactly what it was trying to do. Just where the execution lacked is where it falls.